Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechta Yevamos daf Chav Gimel. We're going to continue where we left off on the top of Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. The Ema Prat L'Chayve Lavan, says Rashi, Im Nasu Ovid Mamzeres. Let's say the father marries a woman who is a Mamzeres, the Hoylid Bas, and through their marriage they had a daughter. So Lava Chosohi, we say that is not considered to be halachically like a sister, the Eimaduli Tafsibahu Kedushi. So let's say that the Kedushin is not typhus. So on this, the Gemara says, Amar Papa Chavi Lavin Tafsibahu Kedushin. When it comes to Chavi Lavin, the Kedushin is typhus. Dechsev Kisiena L'Ishtei Nashim, as it says in Parshas Kiseitse, if a person has two wives, Ha'achas Ahuva V'achas Snua, one that he loves, one that he hates. This is right after the Ishish Vas Toar. So what does it mean he loves, he hates her? Why is that something in front of Hashem that we need to mention based on his feelings toward this woman that he has? He loves her or hates her. Well, what does the Torah come to tell us? Ella ahuva means ahuva b'nisueha. It means that something in which is accepted upon as far as the marriage. In other words, it is a loved marriage because it is 100% a mutter union. However, when it says snua snu b'nisueha, says Rashi ba'avera, that this relationship is through sin. Nonetheless, says Rashi, the isbahu havoya. Even if, let's say, it's a lav, but nonetheless, it's still considered to be your wife. So it may be hated in that it is not considered to be an ideal situation because you have a wife in which is through Chavi Lavin, but nonetheless, it's still halachically your wife. So we see that Kedushin is typhus on Chavi Lavin. Ve'ema, maybe we should say instead, as Rashi says, the high bas eishis aviv. When it talks about your father's wife's daughter, maybe that's prat l'chavi krisos. Maybe it's coming to exclude when it comes to din of krisos. Says Rashi, the ein ishus ba levicha. In that situation, if a father has relations with a woman, it's a chavi krisos situation, that kedushin is not typhus. And maybe that's what we're coming to learn out. So Gemara says, so I'm a Rabbi Omer Kran, this the pasuk says, Eras achaischa bas avicha bas imecha, moedas bayis moedas chutz. So what does this pasuk come to tell us? Bein she'armim lo lavicha kayim, bein she'armim lo lavicha haitze. Whether we say to the father that this marriage can remain, or whether we tell him that they are to leave, she's still considered your sister. So a chayvi krisus, that we would say to go out, even though that's the case, we would still say she's your sister. So therefore, even when it comes to chayvi krisus, she's still considered a chayscha. So when we say ben shar melocha avicha kain ben shar melo avicha haitze vermachmana achayschi l'rabos achaysai mishivcha bi'avedes kochavim. Maybe it's coming to include that this woman is also your sister, even if she's the product of a maid servant who is not Jewish or of its kochavim. So Omicron, no. Bas eishas avicha, the fact that it says Bas eishas avicha, your father's wife's daughter, means sheishlo ishos lavicha. It has to be that it's actually a marriage. Well, prat lachoso of mishpacha mishivcha b'ovedes kochavim, in which there is no kedushin, there's not a marriage, there's no ishos. So why do we say that we're going to include chavi lav and chavi krisus, which is your sister, but now when it comes to shivcha or b'ovedes kochavim, so mistarbra chavi krisus havi rabbis. Makes sense we include that shekain tasa b'kedushin alma, because as we said that the kedushin is typhus in general to others. So even though she's chavi krisus to you, but nonetheless she could marry, someone else can marry her. Adara, maybe the opposite. Shivcha b'ovedes kochavim havi rabbos. Actually, maybe you should say the opposite. You should include that the product of this relationship, di megaira lididei nami tasa b'kedushin. Technically, she could marry him himself. So l'chima gaira gufa chrinahi. Now the reason why she can do that is just because she's like a different person. So that's not you can't use that as a raya. How do we know that it comes to exclude the daughter of a shivcha or of a bodas kachavim? That's not your sister. Menolhu nafkahu from a different pasuk. That says that when it comes to a servant, she will be to the master, her and their child. So we see there's a link between the woman who's a shivcha to her child. Rav Yossi, Rav Yehuda, Chad b'shimcha v'chad b'avodas kachavim. He says that you need one pasuk to tell you that there is she's not your sister regarding to a shimcha, and also b'avodas kachavim. Why? Why do you need both? And this is actually question 3. Madua tzarach pasuk lifter mekares hein bachoso hein ha'akum v'hein bachoso min hashivcha. Why need a pasuk to pater you from kares regarding if it's your sister from an akum or your sister from a shivcha? So the iyashmin and shivcha mishum de'ein l'chayis. The reason why she's not considered halachically your sister is because there's no pedigree. There is chayis when it comes to ovedes kachavim. Maybe you would say that's not the case. So because as Rashi says, "Ovedes kochavim misyacheses al shem aviyah," that it goes after the father. Dechsiv bal adoin ben bal adoin in Malachim Beis. So v'yashmin and ovedes kochavim mishel modolei sharcha b'mitzvos. There's no connection to mitzvos. Avol shivcha the sharcha b'mitzvos demolo sricha. Since there's at least some connection to mitzvos, so maybe we would say that she's not going to be pater from the din kares by taking your sister. Fine. Says Rashi, Kol mitzvah she'isha chayavas ba even chayav ba the gemara isha. Fine. For Rabbanan ashkachan shivcha of chachavim enolu. So he learned out the pasuk Yisha v'yolodeh tilodaneha to tell you the din of a shivcha. So the question is, how do we know by Avos Chachavim the same din applies, that she's not considered to be your sister in regard to being chayav kares? V'chitema neilv mishivcha. So why don't you learn out from shivcha, from a shivcha? No hadu mitzvah srichi. But didn't we say before that you need both of them because you can't learn out one from the other? So Rabbi Yochanan, Rishim Yoicha, Erekwa, there's a different pasuk. It says, Ki yaser as bincha, miyachari bincha, mi Yisrael es kori bincha, ve'in bincha, haba min ho'emes chachamim, kori bincha el benah. This is a famous Gemara in Kedushin. We also saw this previously, that when it comes to a man who wishes to take this child away to serve avodah zarah as he does, so it says that he'll take away, he'll take away the child from you, which means it is considered to be a Jewish child, because if only the man is avodas kachavim. However, the woman is an avodas kachavim, she's an idol worshiper, and she's not Jewish, then it's no longer considered your child; it's considered to be her child. So it's only bincha when it's the man who's the non-Jewish party. Says Rashi, bincha lo sitin livnoi, v'loi karinin be ki sasir bas hoiv kachavim es bincha shetil me'achari. Well, but bincha min kachavim sheyoldu lo bincha kori bincha. It's considered your child. Then bincha haba min ovedes kachavim kori bincha. So again, that's the raya as we saw previously Daf Yud Zayin 2. So again, when it comes to a shimcha, when it comes to ovedes kachavim, the din is that there's no din that she's a chaysai regarding kares. So again, that's the question that was asked. But do a sarach pasuk. Why need a pasuk lifter mekares to pater from kares? Hein b'chaysim and akum, hein b'chaysim and shivcha. Okay, fine. So Omer Ravina Shema Mina, we can derive from here ben bitcha. When it comes to your daughter's son, haba min avik kachavim, that came from a non-Jewish man, kari bincha, that's still considered to be your son. So leimek savar ravina avik kachavim ve'ebed habal bas Yisrael havlad kosher. So we should read from here that when it comes to a avik kachavim who has relation with the bas Yisrael, the child is kosher. So nehi the mamzul havi kosher namul havi Yisrael posel mikri. So you're right, he's not considered to be an apostle, but he's not considered to be a mamzer, but he's not a regular kosher either. He's considered to be an apostle. So hi b'shiva umos ksiv. The question is, says Rashi, this whole pasuk is only talking about the 7 nations. How do we know this din should apply to all the other nations of the world and someone who's an Avik Chavim outside of the 7 nations? So ki yaso rabos kol hamisirin. When they take this child away, it doesn't specify that it has to be someone who is an Avik Chavim among the Zayin Umos, even though that is in fact what the pasuk is talking about. The fact that it says ki yaser, that's a possibility that could be in any situation. So therefore, the riboy is to include all Avik Chavim. That it's only when the man is man is the Ovik Chavim that it's your child. However, if the mother is Ovik Chavim, that's not your child, it's her child. So Anichel, Reb Shimon, the Dorish time to Kra. I can understand according to Reb Shimon who derives from the Psukim, because that's how he can point it out to other nations. El Rabban Manolhu. So Mantana the Polig Aled the Rav Yossi Rav Yehuda Rav Shimon he. It must be that the one who's Polig is Rav Shimon. He's the one who darshans time to Kra, and therefore that's the reason why it's not only talking about the Zayin Umos, it's talking about all the other nations as well. Okay, so let's see question 3 how he answers it. This is also TB7. Diashmin shivcha mishum she'ein lo chayas mashen kein akum. Diashmin akum mishum doli shach mitzvahs mashen kein shivcha. Okay. Right. Let's see the next Mishnah. It's a lengthy Mishnah on Chav Gimel and Beis. The Mishnah says as follows: Mi shekidish achas mishtei achayos. Someone who marries one of 2 sisters. Now ve'en yodeh ezevhem kiddish. He doesn't know which one he was makadish. So in this situation, it's obviously problematic because you can't be married to 2 sisters. So Noisin get Lazu, get Lazu. So therefore you have to divorce them. You can't remain married to one of them because that's not the right one. Maybe you're really married to the other woman and that's your wife's sister. It's Aishas Achaisa. You're not allowed to be married to your wife's sister while she's alive. So therefore you have to get to both of them. Now Mace, let's say this man dies. V'lo ach. So now, and he had no children, so it didn't yibum to which woman? So this brother can't do yibum with both. Instead, he has one brother, just yibum for both. Now, let's say this guy has actually 2 brothers. So first let one of the brothers do chalitza on one of them, and then the other one can do yibum, and therefore the first one is free. And even if she was if she was really no one, she was not really married, there was no din yibum. So now the second brother is actually going to do yibum on the right one. The other way around is also not an issue, because if in fact the first one was the one who was zakuk, who had the zika, it was a really kedushin, so the chalitza was done for her. So now he can marry her and he can do kedushin, which in this case will be yibum l'mikadosh l'biyah. Kadmu v'kansu ein moitzin miyadam. However, if it went the other way around, it's problematic, because if he would first do yibum, so maybe he's doing yibum not on the right one, and therefore it's achazuku kasai. So because of that, one brother does chalitza, then the other one does yibum. If let's say one of the brothers didn't go to the Beis Din and he just married her, did yibum first before the other brother did chalitza, we're not going to say that he has to leave. He can stay. Says Rashi, Chol Chad V'Chad Omer Anat Shapra Nitzivi. That's what we'll also see at the end of today's daf. Each one will say, no, I'm the one that I did it properly. So therefore, we're not going to do anything, especially that chalitza ends up being done with the other one. Fine. Shnaim Shekidchu, let's say instead of one brother, you have 2 brothers. Shnaim Shekidchu, Rashi says rather, Vehim Nachem. You have 2 unrelated people, 2 men who are not related, and they do kedushin to shtei chayos, to 2 sisters. Each of the 2 men had no idea which of the 2 women who were sisters did they marry. So in order to remove any sveikas, they both are required to give gittin, 2 gittin each. Mesu, let's say one of them dies, and let's say they both die rather. So one has one brother. So so just each of the remaining brothers will just do chalitza. One will do chalitza on the 2 women, and the other brother will do also chalitza for the 2 women. Let's say one brother has One man has one brother, the other one has two brothers. So a yachid, first let's do it this way. The one who has one brother, chayil tzishtein. So he'll do chalitza for both of them, so he's out of the picture. And now we go, it's almost like there's only one left. And therefore, Mishnayim, echad chalitza, echad miyavim. The one who has two brothers, so one first does chalitza and yibum, like we said in the Reisha. Kadmu b'kansu, ein moitzin miyadam. And again, if let's say one of the brothers did yibum before chalitza, so we're not going to tell him that he has to leave the marriage. Now, what happens in Lazeshnayim? Let's say, again, you have these two men, and they both died. They don't remember which sister they were married to, and now we don't know what to do. But each of them have two brothers. There's two brothers here and two brothers here. So the din is like this. Achav shel zeh choyletz l'achas, ve'achav shel zeh choyletz l'achas. Achav shel zeh miyavim, chalutzaso shel zeh, ve'achav shel zeh miyavim chalutza shel zeh. So just go slow over here. So what happens is as follows. Again, if you have there's two brothers here and two brothers here, so chalitza achas. So one of them will do chalitza, and the ba'achav shel zeh chalitz, and the other brother will also do chalitza. La'achas achav shel zeh miyavim chalutza shel zeh. So he'll do chalitz, he'll do yibum on the one that chalitza was done. So basically, this is a way of covering oneself that you can just make sure. Again, first one of the two brothers, each one will do chalitza, and then the other brothers will do yibum. Kadmu shnayim v'choltzu lo yavu hashnayim. Let's say both brothers of one baal. So this is what you're supposed to be doing: is that each baal who died, so one of those two remaining living brothers should be the one that does chalitza. But what happens if both brothers of one Baal that died did the chalitza first, before the other two? So therefore, v'choltzu lo yamu hashnayim. In that situation, the other two brothers cannot do yibum, because there's still this question whether or not who yibum was supposed to be done. Now, and obviously you can't have these two brothers marrying these two sisters, because one of them again is achos ukukaso. You can only one of them could do yibum. If they do yibum before, then we're not going to tell them to leave. So basically, what could be done with two brothers and two brothers is that chalitza is done with each of the two brothers, and then the other two remaining brothers could do yibum afterwards. Okay. So Shema Mino, what do we see from here? Kedushin shin misun labia havi kedushin. So the Gemara famously Masechtas Kedushin says that if you have a kedushin in which will not eventually lead to bia, that's not considered to be a kedushin. It's nothing. So l'chayr, this is a raya, because it says in our Mishnah that we're talking about a case where a person does kedushin and he doesn't remember which sister he married. So that's kedushin shin misun labia. You can't have tashmish with either one. You can't have bia with one of them. So this is a raya. Where it says no. Hakamayaskinan kishahukra was soivnis arvu. Dekanami tani ve'eniyodea v'lokatani ve'eniyodua shmamina. It doesn't mean that he never knew. He did know, and therefore, at the time of the kedushin, it was kedushin which was moisalabia, because he knew which sister. For whatever reason, he forgot, and therefore, because of that, that's the reason why this whole issue takes place. Because if he never knew to begin with, then he wouldn't have to give a get, because kedushin shin moisalabia is not a kedushin. But again, this is not a raya over here, because it's possible this is specifically talking about a situation where the guy knew originally. So by Kamashmon, so what's this coming to teach us then? So Seifetz Trichle Meis Echad V'loi Ach. If he has a brother, Chayilus Shteim, you should do chalitza for both of these sisters. Chayilus Shnaim, if he has two brothers, Echad V'echad Miyavim. Davka Michlatz V'Hadar Yevume. As we said, first one brother should do chalitza, then do yibum. Aber Yevume B'Reish Lo the Kapaka B'Achlis Ukukasai. So as we said, because if you end up doing yibum first, it's possible that was not the girl that was your dead brother's wife, and therefore because of that, this is achos ukukaso. So therefore you have to do chalitza, and then the other brother can then do yibum. Question 4, which is also TA 6. Misha kiddush achas b'shnei achoyos ve'eni yodea eze mehem kiddush noisen get. Amay katani ve'eni yodea yadua ve'eni yodea. So why does it say it in that language? of our Mishnah, the Eni Yodea, and he doesn't know, which means he doesn't know now. Says number 4, Demairi Shahukru will serve this arbu. He did know and he forgot. Vu Enu Yodea. Although this arbu Milchatchila, if he didn't know originally, Yadu Klal have a kedushin shin masun labi have in kedushin. Okay, weiter. Shnaim shekidru shnei achayos. So then the Mishnah said you have two men that do kedushin to two sisters, and each of those two men don't know. So again, Shema Mina kedushin shin masun labi havi kedushin. L'chayr we see from here that kedushin. It's a kedushin even though they don't know, because why would they have to give a get? So it's the same question we saw before. Again, both men did know at the time, but they forgot. And how do we know this? We have a proof in the language of the Mishnah. So my kamashmon. So what's the chiddush in that? So again, seifa itzrichle. We need it for the seifa. Mesu was mesu. Let's say both of these men both die. And was that echad, was that shnayim? One has one brother, one has two. So yachad chayil s'shtein. So the one who has one brother can do chalitza for both of the sisters. And now v'shnayim echad echad mi'avim. So pshita hainu reisha. That's really the same thing. Madatema ligzer trey atuchad kamash mulan. You would think that maybe we'd be geyser trey atuchad. What does that mean? Says Rashi. Madatema hacha. Maybe we're not going to allow, in this situation where there's again a 1 and a 2, that we're not going to allow yibum. Kivon dechad minayhu, since one of them yeshul ach yechidi, since one of them has an individual brother, ligzer trei achi delul yabim. Maybe we should say by the two brothers, neither of them could do yibum. Chad minayu atu hahu ach she'en lo ach sheni. One brother because of the other brother, the other group. There's only one brother. In other words, we were talking about, as we saw, a case of one and one. So the problem is that if yibum was done first and then chalitza, then that's achos zekukaso. So maybe we're geyser there. So we're not geyser. It's not a problem. Okay, weiter. Kamashmon, v'davka milchatz v'hada yavumi. Again, you're supposed to do chalitza first. Of yavumi b'reisha lo dekapaga b'yavama b'shuk. Okay, zeshnaim b'zeshnaim. So now you have two men that both died. They don't remember which sister they were married to, and each of those men had two brothers. So he said one of those one of his two brothers should first do chalitza, and then afterwards yibum could be done. So the Gemara says, "Hasulamuli hainu hach madatema ligzer dilma miyabim b'lo chalitza." Kamashmon. Maybe yibum will be done, and then chalitza will not be done. So Maishnam Mahadat Nan. So the question is, the fact that all these situations we say, if they get married, even though they weren't supposed to do yibum first, we don't have them leave the relationship. However, we learned, Mahadat Nan, Arba Achen. You have 4 brothers, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. And Shnai mehen nesuin shtei achayos. Levi and Yehuda were married to 2 sisters. Levi and Yehuda were married to Rachel and Leah. Umesu hanasuin es achayos. So Levi and Yehuda died. So now there's Reuven and Shimon left, who are brothers. There's 2 brothers left, and there's 2 women, Leah and Rachel. Now over here, Rachel was definitely Levi's wife, and Leah was definitely Yehuda's wife. There's no suffix over here. So we say, Hari elu choltzos lo yavamos. In this situation, Reuven and Shimon are only supposed to do chalitza and not do yibum. So the question is, why don't we say, like in our Mishnah, that we could let the second brother do yibum? Why don't we just say that they can all do chalitza, they can all do yibum, and that would be good enough. And Rashi says, "V'katani seifa im kadmu v'konsu." If one of them did yibum, it says yotziu. They have to end that relationship. But why? It says ein moitzin biyadam. In our case, if even the guy didn't do the right thing, he did yibum before, we don't have him leave the relationship. The question is why? Why do we say choltzos v'lo misyavamos? Says Rashi, v'lo amrina. We don't say lichot chad minai. Let's say Reuven could do chalitza. V'dachi lazika dida. mi'achiv, v'hai miyavim chada, and the other one could do yibum. Kimas nisan, like we saw in our Mishnah. Diktani misyavamos shtehen, kol achas la'achar chalitzas achaisa, that each of them could end up doing yibum after their other brother does chalitza. So why don't we say the same thing here? Hachi hashta. You can't compare the two. Why? Hasam over there, we're talking about, let's say, a case of vadai. There's definitely Rachel and Leah, 100% there is a zika, because we know 100% who they were married to, and their husbands died childless. So Hasam Ilman di Omer yesh zika. If you want to say it's the reason is because of there's a strong connection to zika. So because of that strong zika, that's the reason why chalitza can only be done and not yibum. So that's over there. Since in this case of Reuben and Shimon, if you would do yibum and then the other brother dies, so you can't do yibum or chalitza. So it's better to do two chalitzos. Because again, if you have Reuben and Shimon, let's say Reuben does yibum, and even though it's he ends up doing yibum, but then afterwards, Shimon, if Reuben dies, he cannot do yibum because they had done yibum already to each other, and therefore it's preventing a potential yibum to take place afterwards when, again, assuming Reuben dies. That's all because it's 100% a case of yibum. However, over here, each one could claim that I married the correct Yevamot. And because it's a case of a suffix, we're not able to remove them from this relationship. Adkan.